a lot of stress or a lot of issues come from the uh, the expectations that we have. And when I'm talking of expectations, expectations from ourselves within, from oneself, and expectations from the others. So things things are have not been as simple. In fact, there used to be a time when my father used to be talking about, why do you have stress? We used to lead such a simple life, but I think support systems were different and things were different at that point in time. So today we have a you have a stress, you have a pressure of getting up in the morning, you have a pressure to you get onto the road, and then there's traffic, and then you reach office, and there's a competitive situation. There are all kinds of pressure, productivity issues, and then you're on en route back, and then again you're back on the stressful route back home, and then you reach home, and there are issues waiting for you. So things are never ending, really speaking. But then, as if as we have all started learning to get into this scheme of things, and getting attuned to this, that's when the pandemic happened. That's when the COVID-19 happened. And this is the mother of all pandemics. And really speaking, the way things have changed over for last some months for all of us, even the soberest and the calmest minds, I'm sure, are stressed for something or the other, and the overall levels of stress have skyrocketed and gone through the roof. So there are now, add to all the issues which were there earlier. Now there are issues of insecurities. There's financial insecurity. There's job insecurity. There are issues of limited support staff that you have. There are issues of bereavements or sickness at home. You've been asked to socially distance. You can't meet your friends. You can't meet your family members. Where when you wanted earlier, you wanted to you used to hug people, and now you have to stand 6 feet away from the same set of people. So it's a very different kind of a situation. And then all of us are working in some organizations, some institutions. That's a different kind of an additional stress which comes in by, because we are part of an additional social or a professional environment. So to discuss all this, what we thought was that we should get a strong panel, and I'm very happy to get my panel introduced to you. We have three panelists: Dr. Kedar Tilve, we have Mr. Deepu, and we have Mr.
Hello.
Nirupam Srivastava. And so to start with the introductions, Dr. Kedar Tilve he's a consultant psychiatrist working in the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences in Fortis Healthcare. Dr. Tilve has worked as a senior registrar in Sion and Nair hospitals, and was also a consultant psychiatrist with MCGM, that is Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. He's currently attached with Fortis Hospital, Mulund, and also with SL Raheja Hospital in Mahim and Hiranandani Hospital in Vashi. He has been an activist in his own ways, because he does a lot of forum, he does a lot of workshops and discussions around mental health. So we thought it's best that if we get somebody like him to discuss all the issues. And I must tell you, in the last few days of my interactions with him, he is completely full of a lot of stuff which all of us would like to hear, understand what's happening, really speaking, on the ground. What is he seeing? And we're going to talk about all that. So welcome, Dr. Tilve, and thank you for joining. The the next on panel is Mr. KV Deepu. KV Deepu is the president and head of operations and customer services at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company. When Deepu sent me his brief, I asked for a brief. It was a few pages, because I'm sure he couldn't reduce, or he couldn't cut out things which he's done. He's done a lot of good stuff. So, but I worked hard Deepu, I worked hard to reduce all that you mentioned. And
Thank you, Ashit.
so Deepu has been at a he's been leading many industry leadership projects, and he has been at the forefront of digital transformation drive at Bajaj. He has a team of about 1,600 people spread over 170 locations. So that's a big team to manage. Before this, he was with GCAP for a long time, and he had an illustrious career there also, which is so I'm imagining that your Six Sigma came from there, black belt came from there. And he is also a member of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. He is also an IV exec mentor and a member of the Customer Advisory Board of UiPath, which is a robotics process automation leading company. Uh, and then there are a lot of awards which he has won, which I will take a few seconds to read out. Um, so he has been he has won a BFSI Innovative Technology Awards 2018, BFSI Game Changer Award for 2019, BFSI 100 Innovation Leadership Award for 2019, Best Experience Leader for B2C at the Global CXO Summit in 2019, BFSI Leadership Award in 2020, and 50 Fabulous Innovative Leaders Award in 2020. And actually speaking, he says et al, which means that there are many more he hasn't mentioned. I don't know how you do this. I don't even have those many number of participation certificates in my lifetime.
You're being kind, Ashit. Thank you so much.
And last and not the least, but to mention that he is also the #1 TripAdvisor reviewer with over 790,000 readers, and he writes monthly columns in a New York-based website on leadership and a Mumbai-based newspaper on the digital world. So you're really busy, Deepu.
Thank you, Ashit. Thanks for your kind words.
So welcome and thank you for joining. And I again, we've been on a few panels together. So Deepu he's deep into a lot of things, and he very clear thought process. So you're gonna hear that. Next on the panel is Nirupam. Nirupam is the Vice President of Strategy and AI, Artificial Intelligence at Hero Corporate. And he is looking at the strategy, new initiatives, and the AI initiatives. Now, Hero Corporate is into multiple things, into various. It's across a lot of sectors. So they are into financial services, real estate, healthcare, manufacturing, education. So Nirupam has an exposure the from a steel to education. So it's a very varied exposure. Before that, he's worked for 19 years in various strategy and mergers and acquisition positions. In IBM, he's worked as a head of corporate strategy M&A at Schneider Electric, and he's also done some exciting roles in Infosys and Nokia. He's MBA, MTech, and also a law graduate. Again, I don't know how you study so much. So thank you, Nirupam, and thank you all once again for being here, for joining. Let me kickstart the discussion, and I wanted to start with you, Dr. Tilve. I wanted to understand what are you seeing as things which have changed, both in terms of the kinds of issues which are coming up, which were probably not there earlier, and the severity of such issues. And once you mention this, probably we'll get time to discuss all of them in detail.
Sure. So I think it's been a tough past 6 to 7 months for all of us. And if we are going to talk about the issues, let's have a look at what we faced during the lockdown period, which included feelings of loneliness, anxiety about getting COVID. Then, as we moved from lockdown to the new normal, we started having issues with interpersonal relationships. We had issues coming up with motivation, especially amongst the student population who didn't know how to keep functioning during this period and keep themselves motivated. It's generalizing towards the adult population as we speak. Another persistent issue has been that of sleep cycle and work-life balance, which has gone for a toss because honestly, we base our sleep cycle on sleeping on time and going out for jogs and physical activity, which is restricted. A lot of geriatric population has started complaining of irritability and feeling of worthlessness because they have not been able to really contribute, as well as the recalibrations of goals that people have set themselves for the next 2 to 3 years. And the 5 year plans that we usually have had to be recalibrated. So these are some of the specific issues that we have been dealing with over the period.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think very valid points. I think some of these are eye openers for me. I never thought that these are the issues which could be impacting people, teams, and even myself. Maybe it's because all this just goes under the cover, and you don't realize that things are impacting you also. So, coming to Deepu, if you could just tell us, Deepu, what are the because you're in the insurance industry, which is really speaking impacted a lot by the current situation, both positively and negatively. And so, if you could just highlight what do you see as changes or challenges in from the perspective of your teams, because you have a large team spread over a large geographical set of locations, and also the customers who are your customers, that is the insurance customers. How do you think things have changed for them, and what challenges are they seeing?
Okay. Thank you, Ashit. I'll cover them, in two separate parts. See, firstly, coming to employees, in March, when everybody moved to work from home, the challenge, for us was to basically, keep them digitally and emotionally engaged, even as, they were socially and, physically distanced. Because when you have a large workforce which is working from home and they're not able to participate in team meetings in the office and bond with the others, it's very important, to keep them, connected, because that is when, they're able to offer their best services to customers. So what we did was we said, let's convert adversity into opportunity. So we came out with a series of employee engagement programs. And why I said adversity into opportunity is because we said, now that people are working from home, why involve only employees? Why don't we involve their families as well? So what we did was, for example, one weekend we came out of the Master Chef program. Now, if we had done this pre-pandemic in the office, it would have been only employees coming with recipes or maybe dishes. But since they were now doing it at home, we asked their families to participate, and we have a WhatsApp group. So employees, we're posting recipes and photographs of various dishes from all over the country, from Kerala to Bengal to Punjab to Orissa, right? And somebody's mother, somebody's wife, somebody's sister, somebody's cousin, somebody's daughter. So it was just amazing. Then after that, we came out with a lot of, employee engagement programs online. We had
Mm-hmm.
online Antakshari, we had online Tambola, we had poster making competition. So much so, Ashi, that the employee engagement score during the pandemic actually, became better than the employment score, pre-pandemic. So
Okay.
that was one way, in which, we managed our employees, right? Even though they were, as I said, socially and physically distanced, we kept them
Correct.
emotionally and digitally engaged. So that was one challenge we overcame, with flying colors. Now, coming to customers, Ashit, if you recollect, what happened in March was the lockdown was announced with just 4 hours notice, and it was a 3-week lockdown.
Correct.
Now, while you can take care of new projects, right? We are a large established company with a lot of customers, right? And like you rightly said in insurance, let's take health insurance, right? Now, even if it is motor insurance, you can maybe tell somebody, please don't buy the car today, buy the car tomorrow. But somebody if he's in the hospital, you can't tell
Correct.
him, please wait for a day, right? I mean, he has to,
Correct.
if he's already in the hospital, he has to continue the treatment, or if somebody is unwell, they need to go for, treatment. So then we realized, that we had to find a way to service our customers. And what we did was we had actually invested, in a lot of digital assets. So what we did, we embarked on a massive communication drive, because we didn't want our customers to call up the call center and then find out, that they can also, avail of these assets. So we have WhatsApp, which is a very effective channel. We have our own mobile app. We have, our own chatbot. We have our portal. We have a host of digital tools. So what we had done, Ashit, was we had figured out, the key drivers of traffic into the call center, right? Why do customers call the call center? So we figured out the top 7 to 10 categories, and we built end-to-end customer journeys. We had built rather on these digital assets, right? Even before the pandemic. So all we needed to do during the pandemic, during those 4 hours when the lockdown happened, was to go out and tell customers saying, please
Good.
don't worry if contact centers are down, because everybody knew that everything was shut. Sitting in the comfort of your home, you can avail of, these digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
So customers, because we were able to communicate, they were able to migrate. The good thing, Ashit, is that even today, right? Because today we are 7 months past March, and unlock has happened, right? Today, call centers do exist, but even today, 80% of our servicing happens with the same digital assets. So which proves, that those digital assets, were truly of value to customers. And the biggest validation for us was that during this period, our customer complaints came down by 90%.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so that is how we were able to cater to customer needs. So through all these, digital assets. The other is at every step of the value chain, we gave customers digital options. For example, let's take health claims again. I'll pick on health insurance because on health asset you can't wait.
Yeah.
Earlier, what would happen if they had if they had to send in lots of documents, let's say, for health claim reimbursement, they would send it to our office, right? Now, courier services were not functioning during this time. So we enabled, what we call click by direct claim. Sorry, claim by direct click, which meant, they could basically, scan the document and send it to us using the mobile app. And, we continued to process it immediately. So we continued with all our services online, absolutely unhindered. And as I said, even today, the digital penetration is here to stay. So this is broadly, Ashit, how we have managed to cater to both customers and employees, during the lockdown.
Thank you. I think that was a lot of good things that you've done for the employee and for the customer. Deepu, maybe it's a discussion for some other day, but I'm sure this actually points to the robustness of your digital transformation that you've done till now. Only
Right.
then you could respond so quickly and
Yes.
with all these new initiatives. But as I
That's
said,
right.
it's a separate discussion, different
Sure.
from this topic.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So Nirupam, coming to you, again, you come on from a different one sector to the other, as I said earlier, so I'm sure the issues, the challenges have been different across sectors. So what were you seeing with respect to your employees? Let's, maybe specific to employees, and what all did you do in your organization?
Sure. So again, thank you, and thanks to Deepu also, because he covered a part of what I would have said. So that saves my time. Uh, uh, so so one of the things which we did initially was, again, is tone from the top. So what we did was, chairman actually held video conferencing with virtually every employee across every business unit we had. So if it is schools, we had all the teachers on a platform. It was like 700 teachers on that platform, something like that. If we have looked at hospitals, so we had all the doctors and the staff on Zoom calls. We kind of discussing, sharing what is happening around the world, because in initial days it was a bit of a lot of anxiety due to lack of information or misinformation. So the first of the things that we did was, again, soothe the nerves, and to share in what the right information is, and also encourage people, especially the medical community is at the forefront, to share more right information, so that all this media and social media based infodemic that we had, can be corrected with the right set of information. The second thing, which was essentially across sectors, as Deepu also mentioned, is leveraging technology. For example, so we had collaboration platforms which we had set up at our schools, college, universities, which enabled both teachers to teach from their homes and students to learn from their homes. So that was, again, and also teachers to collaborate among themselves, because a lot of coordination thing happens in a school or university framework. So how the schedules are worked, what curriculum is being worked out. So both teacher collaboration, teacher student collaboration, and teachers parent collaboration, because then if the students are not coming to school or college, then how do you communicate with the parents? You don't have a PTM. So PTM also went online. So a lot of this kind of communication. There were certain industries like healthcare, the capacity constraints came into picture, because now you have a shift system and rotating shift system and quarantining system. So suddenly, if you thought you had so much capacity, your capacity became half or one third or one fourth, depending on what kind of scale you have. And also it became a bit lopsided. For example, you would treat COVID, but you would not treat non-elective. So because initially government said don't treat, so those doctors were free, actually having no work, but you can't use them because they are in different specialization. And this is the COVID part, which is getting built up and which is having limited resources. So a very interesting thing. Same thing with universities, especially with the admissions and the final year students. Luckily this happened in October, so many places admissions had happened, but in other places where the admissions or the placements were happening, it created a kind of a lag effect. A lot of companies did postpone. So communicating with those students, getting their continuous learning thing done. So some institutions did a postponement of graduation day. So graduation day, in fact, convocation days, graduation days. So how to keep students engaged in that factor. So a lot of effort came into through the virtual platforms, e-learning things. We also did, like Deepu talked about food, we had this for tree plantations. Everybody, we should plant a tree in their house and come on a Zoom call and share what it is. So So a lot of collaborative activities, but again we left it relatively open. We A lot of things are happening in the friend circles, like there are meditation sessions in the morning, or Gita lectures in the everyday kind of stuff. So a lot of happening across that factor. But yes, there is still a missing element, which is the physical part. You having lunch together with your colleagues, or
Correct.
having a tea based gossip. So those things are still missing. But what we are trying to do is making sure also give some bit of a slack,
Mhm.
because people may have their issues. There are situations where if they are working from home, there are multiple uh, requirements. So kids are there, you are there, it's a lot of things happening simultaneously.
Correct.
So giving some slack is also equally important, but main factor is communicating, sharing and understanding what they're going through. So that's what we have been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, so I have a feeling that most of the organizations have had similar issues. Like we also had same things, and what you said, what Deepu said, we also did some things like these. We had some music competitions online, and we had some informal chats online. So I think the good part is that most of us our organizations have been able to utilize the tools effectively, and we've reached out to the employees pretty effectively. So, Dr. Tilve, if I were to come back to you, you mentioned some of the issues which you're seeing, which is loneliness, anxiety, interpersonal relationships, sleep cycle, work-life balance, and really speaking, its work-life balance effectively has been completely disturbed because you're a lot of time you're working from home, and the way our structures are and the way our families are, work from home is really something, the spaces are not very clearly demarcated, so it becomes a bit of a challenge at times. And then you also mentioned about irritability issues, and then you mentioned very interesting recalibration of goals, and I think recalibration of lifestyle. So it'll be good if you just talk us through these things, and tell us what's really happening where, and what do you suggest how things will go from here.
Okay, thank you, Ashiji. Let's be very clear. I mean, institutions have responded, and like Nirupamji was pointing out, we responded during the lockdown, and we are responding during the begin again phase. And one thing that I can say, if I can just digress for a bit, is that I'm extremely proud to have been part of a group of hospitals which continue to keep their doors open throughout the pandemic. And I think it speaks to the level of professionalism that has been showed not only at the institutional level but across the country as a whole. That even when things came to a standstill, we continued to function and we continued to take in patients. At the same time, there wasn't time during this lockdown and during this begin again phase when all of
Doctor,
us
can
had.
I just request you to be a bit louder or closer to the microphone? There's somebody who's put a comment on the chat that your voice is not very clear.
So, am I audible now?
Yes, it's better now.
Yeah, great. So, uh, what I was trying to point out was that as an industry itself, we have been thrown into the forefront of what is now turning out to be a very long drawn out battle. And even during the lockdown phase and the begin again phase, it did not matter where you were or who you were. All of us felt that one moment or one day of loneliness and helplessness and hopelessness. We all experienced it. So one thing that I've realized is normally I would have had to sit down and explain this to people, but now we have all collectively experienced this at some point or the other in the past 6 months. Along with this came a lot of issues pertaining to interpersonal stressors. Primarily started with the fact that you would not allow house helps in. So division of daily chores became an issue, and you tried to sort them out. If you couldn't, it cascaded into something bigger. A
Correct.
lot of things which were swept under the carpet were suddenly now thrown out because people literally had to spend their time with each other for 6 to 9 months. Now, let's be very clear about one thing when it comes to work life balance. As Indians, we are trained to enjoy our work, and culturally, you can't be stressed about home. So, these two things conflicted into a lot of issues coming up. But the strange thing is, not only did I see interpersonal relationships breaking down, I also saw couples rediscovering their love and care for each other during this phase. So, just as many of people reported breakdowns, same number of people came back saying, "Listen, we are fine, we have worked it out, and we are doing great, and we are adjusting." So that was the good part of it, which gets missed. Another part of work-life balance, and I think you guys will be able to tell me better, is people are complaining that, listen, Zoom sessions and WhatsApp meetings are now getting channeled at any point of the day. So the problem that we are having is sleep wake cycle, and we don't know when to sleep and when to wake up, and it caused a lot of confusion. uh, as it is, sleep is a very complicated process. It's a physiological process, active physiological process. So if you don't sleep properly, it means that you're going to have a grumpy next day, at least. And more often than not, it's a sign of anxiety and depression. So the challenge that we faced was distinguishing between anxiety that was going on, depression that was going on, and when it became clinically significant. Along with that, very, very interestingly, after the beginning, and not during the lockdown, remember, lockdown was still vacations going on. After the begin again started, kids started realizing that we are not going to go to school. And suddenly, school, which used to take 6 to 7 hours, now became 3 hours with your parents sitting behind you and taking notes. And they, most of the people whom you would expect to have difficulties, did not report any. Now we had high performing students, high performing individuals, high performing people who were waiting for their exams, who suddenly didn't know how to keep themselves motivated any longer. And this started with the children, and now it's going towards the adult population, who are coming in and telling me that, listen, we don't know how this is going to be, and we don't know
Yeah.
why we are running on. And this recalibration was something which we have to understand with regards to two concepts. One is a hedonistic set point, and the other is a hedonistic treadmill. What it basically means is
Hedonistic.
it's
Sorry, you said
treadmill,
hedonistic set point.
set point,
Hedonistic set point.
and a
Okay.
hedonistic treadmill. So what it
Okay.
basically means is that this is what you expect out of life. So if we remember, in 1960s and 1970s, this is roughly the life we would live and would be fine with it. So the hedonistic set point was, we are fine if we have a steady job, we are fine if we don't have to go out anywhere, as long as we have somewhere to go during the vacations. That can be Lonavala,
Yeah.
Kandala,
Yeah.
if you are in Mumbai. And suddenly during the 2000s and 2010 and 2000, the last decade, we realized that, listen, we have to have two vacations every year. We can party out. We got used to a lifestyle which was more hedonistic, more demanding, and we got used to pushing ourselves to the limit on the hedonistic treadmill. Now what COVID did was, it has forced us to come to a grinding halt and reset what we expect. So the sudden recalibrations of the goals have been difficult to handle for a majority of the population.
Yeah.
Some of the population has been able to realize what they have to do and adapt. So we have seen them taking up different challenges. We have seen them taking up different life goals and working towards it. But majority of the population is now wondering, what are we doing this for? Why are we working so hard? And the work-life balance that you were mentioning becomes an issue, because if you don't have an award, why would you continue working that hard? Yeah. So a lot of people are coming up with these issues now. A lot of people are coming up with these concerns now. Not to mention the unfortunate news that we had in June, which is sort of become an which has sort of become a complete attention grabber for us. So that led to a lot of self harm issues and thoughts coming in, because we identified with the actor in question as a group, and those were those were issues that we were dealing with initially during June. So yeah, I mean, it's coming to us, and we are starting to adopt, and perhaps we can discuss this at a later time when it's appropriate to discuss management. But these are some of the issues that we are seeing on a daily basis, which we would not normally see. We had expected anxiety, we had expected depression, we had expected substance abuse to come up, but now we are seeing these issues, soft issues, coming up and hampering people and having forcing them to recalibrate.
Correct. Yeah. So I think the lifestyle recalibration is also how you interact with people And I think that's also a very important aspect of the whole thing. And recalibration of goals is, I think, very individualistic. It's different for different people. Because if you're in a stable job, then it's a different type of recalibration. But if you're in a profession which has been impacted much more and will take more time to come back to the normal, then I think the recalibration is completely different. So I think different ways of looking at this recalibration and how those individuals respond to the threat. But I must, on the lighter side, I must say that you were mentioning being at home and not stepping out. I must say that the skies were clearer. You could see the stars, and I personally have enjoyed the rains the best this time, and the weather and the clean air has been one silver lining in the whole thing. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I agree with you that I think the kids are also going under a lot of different kind of stress. So, and we all see it at our homes, whether it is the anxiety as to what's going to happen when I get back to school, if at all this year. When am I getting back to school? What's going to happen to my exams, especially kids who are in the board class 10 and 12. They don't know what's going to happen if the admissions are not very clear as to how to. So all this is adding to a lot of mental stress, if not trauma, to a lot of even parents that way. So Deepu and Nirupam, I had a question. In the midst of all this and everything that you've done, the employee engagement has gone up. But how do you think has the productivity shaped up? Has it been better? Has it been worse? Because we are hearing different conflicting news. I mean, I may be spending more number of hours on the phone or on calls, but how effective am I being? Because I'm not with the same set of people with whom I was in office. And when you need some information, you need some data, you just whisper into the other guy's ears, and he just gives it to you on a USB disk, or he just mails it to you. Now it's completely different. Now you have to plan this better. You have to reach out, and there's a time lag in what in this give and take. So how do you think has productivity being impacted?
So I will give you two examples. So one is the commute time. Okay, so everybody used to commute, spend like on an average in Delhi, like city, 4 hours, maybe Bangalore worse, every day. So that time is completely saved. So now people have this time to themselves and they can do whatever they like during that time. It's not just in terms of time, but it's also in terms of energy, because commute is a tiring process. Okay, so if you are traveling 1.5, 2 hours in the morning, by the time you reach office, you're partially drained out, and then you need to recharge yourself, and then you go back to work, and same thing happens in the evening. The second thing which I found really most productive is the meetings actually. Since now you are doing a web conference, everybody is on time. Okay, so nobody is late. Nobody has an excuse that I am this part of city or this part of country or this part of world, so I can't come in, because everybody is anyway joining from home. So we have board meetings where 100% attendance is there, which has never happened before,
Okay.
because everybody, all senior people are traveling sometime or the other, or different parts of the world, different engagements. That's all gone. So now moving from one board meeting to another meeting is as easy as switching a Zoom call to another Zoom call. So I mean, and the third part, which is also even more interesting, is everything is getting recorded. So the whole question of what was discussed, what was minuted, all things are available digitally for future. So you don't even have to worry around that front, whether it's internal meeting or a board meeting, whatever level you want to call it. Everything is available, and communication is becoming much easier. So it's flexible. Since everything is recorded, you don't need to really, if somebody else needs to say it, he can see it anytime. So his time flexibility has increased. So a lot of positive things have happened thanks to this. I mean, you and I have both worked with IBM, and we always had this culture of working from anywhere. So we are used to it. But many other people, including many people from much senior generations, are now finding this much more interesting actually. So that it saves their time, saves them effort. I mean, many of the people are so senior they can't really travel much, so they can just sit in their home, and somebody from the family will set up a Zoom call, and they are there, and they can talk to other people like they would have otherwise not done. So a lot of interesting things are happening in this, even in medical space. Like, we have this uh, regulatory issues around telehealth, which suddenly got removed. I mean, they have been hanging fire for decades, and they could have been done much before. But now, since this happened, they are now available. So now we have senior doctors who have, say, multiple comorbidities. They can't really go to that patient, but we have now a webcam based system which goes around the hospital to these patients, and they can interact with the doctor, and the doctor can interact with the patient. So a lot of interesting stuff is happening which otherwise would not have happened. So
Sure.
I stop here and let Deepu talk the remaining points.
Yeah, thank you, Nirupam. I think it's good that you covered a few aspects. So Ashit, since you were query was around productivity. See, if we just see what has happened. See, on the one hand, what we need to realize is that this is not just work from home. This is work from home coupled with the lockdown. It's not work from home in a typical scenario, right? Because then you could have somebody saying that, I'm not available, I'm out at a wedding, I'm out for a meal, I'm out to watch a cricket match, right? So on and so forth. So as a result, what has happened at both ends, whether it is the employer, whether it is the manager, both have, without verbalizing it, communicated and expected availability. As a result, what has happened is, there is nothing known as 9 to 5 or 5 to 9. Everybody is available every time. So there's a lot of activity which has gone up. So from that perspective, the number of hours has gone up, right? Because you can have call at any time of the day or the night. Okay. So that is one dimension, where the number of hours has gone up. The activity has gone up. Now, on the, on the contrary, what has also happened is, meetings are now become very efficient because now, like how Nirupam said, you don't need to physically travel. It's only about, digitally moving from, one mode to another, and meetings start on time, meetings end on time. There is no travel time. There is no waiting time. Indian standard time is no longer Indian stretchable time. It's actually now, is as, people are as punctual as, people globally are, right? So from that perspective, efficiency has come in. So if people are working longer hours, and if there is efficiency because it's become lean, then typically you would expect a far higher output, but that is yet to kick in, right? Because if the same people have moved from, let's say, 9 hours to, let's say, 12 or 15 hours and being more efficient, then each person should produce 2x or 3x.
Correct.
But that has not happened. So what has happened is activity has increased and outcome has not increased. So therefore, I think what we have embarked on and what I know all organizations should do is move from monitoring folks, based on activity to monitoring folks, based on outcome. Because the moment you get into outcome-based, a reward and penalty system, then you are, truly giving autonomy to the individual, right? And you will see, how it plays itself out, over a period of time.
Yeah.
The other reason why this has not happened, Ashit, to my mind, is because when it started, you see, this was the largest lockdown of human beings globally, right? 4 billion human beings, were under some sort of a lockdown. So everybody was, recalibrating himself or herself, to the new normal. You had to learn to first figure out, how these tools were. I don't think many people had used many of these tools prior to the pandemic. Maybe, one odd conference, but not on a day in and day out basis, with all your colleagues, right? So figuring out what to do, ensuring, that people have assets, ensuring, people have Wi-Fi, ensuring, that, cyber security is in place. So all of that. So it's not, you just don't move into this overnight, right? It takes time to establish that. So I think that, I think, it took time to establish that. That's why longer hours. And of course, so the productivity, has to play itself out from an outcome-based perspective.
Yeah.
Now
So,
here, and that is on one dimension I want to bring in, and because today is, World Mental Health Day, and that's where I think, the theme for today is, is kind of apt. Because what's happening is that when people are working longer hours and they are leaner, but if they do not have their downtime, then you are not always going to get a consistent increase in productivity. Which is why I think, mental health and, relaxation, are very, very important, right? Because when that happens, because you take even machines, right? Even the best of machines, they need to have some downtime for maintenance, for, and for, greasing and oiling and, all of that, right? If people are not taking vacations, who has taken a vacation? People can't go anywhere. They can't go to a mall. They can't go to a movie hall. They can't go to a cricket stadium. They can't even travel, right? So what's happening is just activity, activity, activity. So I think, you will have to introduce some amount of recreation. It may look ironic, but if you, get some recreation, then you may, get, higher output, going forward. So that's, broadly, how I have seen the landscape and how I see it going forward.
yeah,
Yeah,
very well
just
put.
to add, Ashit, So there is a much higher rate of burnout. Completely agree with Deepu. So people are working more, and being working in an isolated environment, it is leading to a much higher burnout rate. So that is definitely true. So breakouts are required. Some sort of work-life differentiation is needed. So all these things are absolutely important. Besides
Yeah, sure.
efficiency, we need some level of a free period or a break period in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, both of you just answered a question which had come, that don't you think this entire thing, the blurring of 9 to 5, and it's intermingling with the personal time is actually impacting the work-life balance, which it is really speaking. And it's much easier for many of us who have that kind of space at home, where you can really demarcate a workspace and a personal space. But there are we must appreciate that there are a lot of people in a lot of households which don't have that kind of a luxury. And so your eating space and your sleeping space and your workspace, everything gets intermingled. And I think that's where it's not only you who's getting onto a call who's getting frustrated. It's everybody around you who's getting frustrated, that you just asking everybody to just just be quiet and not make noise and just stay away, etc., etc. Yeah. So, doctor, I had a question, and this is a fallout of all that we were discussing. Uh, with all these, everything happening digitally now and online now, the use of gadgets has gone multifold. While it's good for the electronics industry, there's a lot extra has been sold. But in terms of it's becoming if I look at my screen time, or anybody's screen time, it's gone up exponentially. How do you think is that impacting our mental makeup and our health, and all the issues around gadgets, especially kids also, really speaking?
Um, I think it's a wonderful question you have worded, and I'll say worded because this question has been haunting all of us for a long time now. In fact, to give you a bit of perspective, in Jan, I was presenting a symposium on how to digitally detox and
Oh,
how PUBG and other games were an issue. So, at the risk of receiving hate mail, I am really glad that PUBG got banned. But when we talk about screen time and when we talk about the digital interface that we have had, let's remember we have gone from recreational use to practical daily use. And that has been the one quality check that we have forgotten.
mm-hmm.
Now, suddenly my parents are happy to order online the
Yeah.
daily vegetables. They don't have to constantly go there and check the vegetables.
Hmm.
So that thing is not causing an issue now. Uh, Interestingly, the screen time has gone up, but the anhedonia that is usually associated, the numbing that is usually associated, has not gone up with it. This is
Okay.
because we have actually had to limit our social interactions. So, I mean, you guys were talking very, very pertinent points about productivity not going up. And one funny example that I remember was during the lockdown when one of my patients was complaining, "Ki, sir, I love the digital meetings. I love the fact that I don't have to travel, but I miss the fights I have with my colleagues
Yeah.
because the best ideas always came when there was a conflict and someone had to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Now, on these meetings, everyone seems to agree with everyone, and we can't switch off after the meetings. So, I think the one other area that you need to realize when you come to screen time and digital time is how to not let a meeting carry on in your head, and for that you need to allow yourself 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after the meeting to sort of recollect what has happened, what has transpired, and switch off that particular section from your daily routine.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness based practices help, obviously. The relaxation techniques that Deepuji and Rupamji were talking about. Mindfulness based practices are daily activities which don't really need you to learn anything. They are just approach, so that helps. At the same time, you need to realize that work life balance comes down to the fact that you are able to be comfortable discussing work at your home.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the families and most of the spouses will understand and reciprocate.
Okay.
So it was a simple thing. I used to tell my patients, "Ki, listen, if daily chores are an issue, Then split the chores that you like, and you will find that you complement yourself with your partner, and they get divided. If you have an issue with separation, because a lot of people had that problem of a space being available, then
Yeah.
you use headphones, you blur the background, and then you can sit in a train which is moving with a good Wi-Fi speed and still attend the meeting. So people are adopting. You have to give them time to adopt. I work in a much more clinical environment where it is extremely important to see an patient on a face-to-face basis. And like Nirupamji pointed out, the digitalization of the health sector was something we had all been waiting for, and this has happened, and it is a great thing to have happened, because now we can reach out to patients and patients can reach out to us, and we are learning as we go along. So I'm sure the productivity will improve, but these small things of switching off from a meeting, of remembering that the screen time usage is there, but it has to be limited to what you are using on a work basis.
Correct.
The other part is, I think, one important point that Nirupanji made was infodemic. I think it's very, very important that we as a family limit the source of our informations to authentic information, and we do it together.
Yeah.
So if you keep watching breaking news continuously, it's going to impact you into a negative spiral.
Absolutely.
So what I have started telling patients is go at it the way we used to go at it 90s. In 90s, you used to have half an hour of news in the morning, half an hour of news in the night, compulsory watching by the entire family, and then you discuss the news amongst yourself so that you know what the other person is taken out. So I think these small things will help improve the work-life balance drastically. uh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. I think your this aspect of your checking your exposure is very very important, because especially you were referring to that incident of an actor. I think the media is just leaving nothing unturned to give negative news to us, and I think it's very important for all of us to maintain that balance with what we're getting into our heads from media and all around us. Um, just on a lighter note, you said you were happy when PUBG was banned. We were also very happy. We made a special meal on that day. But let me tell you, it's still on. I don't know what is that ban all about, but I am seeing kids all around, including my house. My son is still on. I really expected some virus to be thrown by government of India into those phones or devices which were using it and killing the app, but it's just not happening. So okay, Nirupam, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, more than PUBG, it was TikTok actually. So TikTok is crazy out here. I mean, seriously, with the kids,
Correct.
it's still,
Correct.
it's still there somewhere.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah, I
Deepu, are
think
you about to make a point on what's happening in your house with PUBG and TikTok?
Well, my kids are young, so basically my wife is having a tough time, managing them, because when they are doing online education, she has to make sure that they're actually studying and they're not playing video games,
Oh, yes,
So, and
absolutely.
the load has come on to parents, right?
Yeah,
Because teachers are doing online classes, but the entire administrative and logistical responsibility has fallen on on my wife.
correct.
So she's having quite a tough time managing them.
Sure. I think that's happening everywhere in every household.
So
Yeah.
one of the joke is there. Earlier teachers used to, or schools used to say, kids don't bring mobiles in, to the school because it's banned.
Yeah,
Now it has become the other way around. So schools are now saying, get on your mobile, and so you can't actually have that digital separation among the kids. So they now by default have these devices. And in fact, I have got a complaint. It was not PUBG, some other game, but no. So this is universal, and I don't know if parents at home know a way to figure this out. I don't know, doctor, if you want to give some advice there, would be very helpful.
how to get your kids off PUBG?
how to get your kids off PUBG. First, reduce your Wi-Fi speeds. Yes, it's
then
a
my
very, very,
then
very
my
bad.
Zoom call and my Teams call will have a problem.
Yes, yes, but you have to remember that Wi-Fi speeds are regulated by you. The Wi-Fi passwords are regulated by you. You take your kid off PUBG immediately, and you will get a drastic behavioral response. That
Yeah,
is because of the dopaminergic facade that it provokes in you. So
yeah,
irritability and lashing out is pretty common if you stop PUBG immediately. But if you reduce the Wi-Fi speed and the downloadable content, then you will find that the kids are hampered by their inability to play. So that helps. The second thing that PUBG usually does is kids tend to play in the night. Yeah. So the Wi-Fi speed either needs to change in the night, or the router needs to be switched off, or the password needs to be changed. That helps drastically when it comes to dealing with PUBG. The other option is to give them a phone which will not support PUBG. And honestly, I'll tell you a simple fact. We expected video games to affect the higher level of society,
Hmm.
not the lower income groups. But in Jan, the 4 5 patients that I had came from lower income groups who were playing PUBG on the lowest possible screen that you get, which supports digital backgrounds.
Okay.
So that was the level which it had entered into our life with. And
Okay.
I think what has happened is you can't download it anymore. So what that would mean is that unless there is an absolute uh, update that they give, then your character won't be supported, and over a long time you
It
won't be able
go up.
to continue with the PUBG.
Yeah, let's
The
hope.
the other problem that I have discovered is that when it comes to kids and when it comes to adults also, sleep wake cycle became an issue, and that happened like we were discussing because of Wi-Fi speeds. Because for some strange reason in our head we still count Wi-Fi speeds as being high in the night.
Correct.
So people used to come to me saying, "Okay, listen, we can't sleep properly." And I used to say, "Okay, tell me when you sleep." And the answer was, "I sleep at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock." So it was very disconcerting for me. Ki the first couple of months I had to put everyone on medicines for it.
Okay.
Then I realized that what was happening was the physical exertion that you normally get out
Correct.
of the day
Correct.
was not coming through.
Correct.
So your sleep wake cycle is going to get altered.
Yeah.
So what I changed with my patients and the advice I give now is that I ask them to actually ensure that they woke up on time, irrespective of when they went to sleep.
Okay.
So you can sleep at 12, you can sleep at 2, you can sleep at 4, but you have to wake up at 7. You have to make tea for your house, drink the tea. I ensured that the breakfast became the most important meal of the day. And after that, if you want, go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to this simple adjustment in the daily routine, everyone responded.
Okay.
So there is something known as sleep hygiene, which actually involves setting a schedule and going to sleep on time. I think during this new begin again and new lockdown, what we have to realize is we have to tweak it a little bit
Okay.
for the next 2 to 3 months till things get back to normal. Uh, to waking up on time and ensuring that you count the entire day's sleep.
Ah, okay.
So you may not sleep for 4 hours in the night. If only sleep for 4 hours in the night, you may sleep for 2 hours in the day. That's still 6 hours.
Correct.
And if you're feeling fresh, that's a great sleep pattern.
Correct.
The the other thing is watch when your kid plays the game. Watch when you are interacting with Netflix, when you're WhatsApping, when you're texting. I mean, I am tired of telling this to people prior to the lockdown and after the lockdown. This has not changed. If you watch Netflix and if you watch WhatsApp and if you stream it in the night, it's like talking with a person. So you're not going to be able to sleep. So either download and keep and watch it the next day, or if you are into the habit of watching WhatsApp, switch off the last scene, because
Okay.
more sleep is lost about who saw the last scene
Yeah.
rather than what you have typed. So these couple of things were adjustments that we ensured, and with regards to PUBG, it's a process. It's a process. It's not going to go off. I mean,
Okay.
for my age group, you give road rash and you give Counter Strike to us, and we'll still lose ourselves for 6 to 7 hours. So
Yeah.
PUBG is a process, but it will come down now. I think the first steps have been taken.
Okay. Thank you. Very, very intriguing. Very, 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 very interesting. So we don't have too much time left, but I had just a couple of questions and then maybe an advice from all of you. All these changes and Deepu and reform that we are seeing in the organization with respect to work from home and the various policy changes which are there. For example, yesterday I was reading Microsoft has allowed work from home forever. TCS is saying that only 25% of the people need to come to office, rest can work from home. How long? How do you are you seeing this as long term? And I'm not talking only work from home, but other policies also. Are these permanent? Are these short-lived? What will come back? What will not come back? How are these going to change? And Doctor, my similar question will be to you as to how will the behavioral patterns change? How many of them will be short-lived and how many of them will be permanent? Yeah. So maybe Deepu Nirupam, you can start.
Yeah. So Ashit, if you see the way, the world is evolving right now, I break it into two parts. One is there will be some aspects of this which will continue, for the long term. For example, if work from home, has been established, as a pattern which can work. And if you look at classic studies of human beings, there are a lot of theories which say that if you do something consistently for 21 days, it becomes a habit. Some other studies say that if you do it for 66 days, it becomes a habit. But now this has been done now for 7 months globally. This was not something that was happening in, just one country. It's happened across humankind, for 7 months in a row, right? So therefore, it's established, right? No longer will somebody say, at the top of a head, you start traveling, right? If it has worked. So therefore, some things will be permanent. And why will some things become permanent? Because there is value in it. Now, what happens here? You don't have to travel, let's say, to New York or London all the way for a 1 hour meeting. You can do it over a Zoom call, so you save on travel cost. Similarly, within cities, like let's take Mumbai or Delhi, like how Nirupam said, commute time. If I can do the same work from home, right? But if I don't have to travel 2 hours each way, why would I want to commute? You save on commute time, you save on real estate cost. So wherever it is beneficial, some of those trends will continue in the long term. That is clearly one point.
Okay.
The second is one thing which we all need to understand is that whenever a pandemic like this happens, we tend to overestimate the impact in the short term and we forget what happens in the long term. And I'll give you a simple example. When 9/11 happened, when many people saw images of those planes going and crashing into the Twin Towers, there were a lot of people at that time who said, I'm not going to fly again. But within a few months, right, that was forgotten, right? People started flying and everybody forgot about 9/11 because human beings have been social beings for billions of years. 6 months or 7 months are not going to change your basic DNA of being a social animal. It can't outweigh millions of years. Some of those trends, will come back because human beings don't like to be caged. So some of those trends, will come back to the earlier normal. So it's going to be a mixed bag of some things which are permanent and some things which will go back to your basic traits as we emerge from this pandemic phase.
Fair enough. Thank you. Very nice. Nirupam.
Sure. So one of the things is that till we have a reasonable assurance of how this pandemic or virus is going to play out, I think people will still be conservative. I give you our example. For example, we opened our offices after the government allowed opening, and some of our offices had again an outbreak, and we had to again put them back work from home mode because, and it was anyway not completely open; it was partial open, but still we had the issues. So unless and until we uh, as an employee or as a partner is fairly safe and secure, ultimately human nature is towards safety. uh, Everything else in the world can continue. If I am not there, doesn't that's the most important thing. So, and I and my loved ones, family members, etc. So that's takes primacy. So people would definitely err towards safety. Of course, I completely agree with Deepu that people want to go out. I mean, internally it's kind of a rebellion inside people. They want to go out to see a movie, they want to go out to see a restaurant, eat out. I mean, they want to do a lot of things which they have, as Dr. Tillis also said, get used to in the last decade or so. That those are something which we take for granted. And uh, and I think from a business perspective, there are some things which are more amenable and some things which are less amenable. We still see, for example, businesses which are consulting oriented, like which personal selling.
Yeah.
uh, I mean, it's still, we are not still sure how to do that. I mean, even if we go to an online conference, the biggest purpose of going to a physical conference was to do networking, and unfortunately online systems don't enable that kind of networking.
Absolutely.
So we are still struggling. Maybe we will figure out a solution to that, but till that time we do personalized B2B selling. I'm not sure how we this, I mean, unless we find a solution, so that probably may come back. But other things where tech can definitely enable person sitting from any part of the world. So it is becoming a global marketplace. So essentially the world is flat is now actually truly happening, because you can, if you want to work in the night, you can actually attend conferences in US and have the best experts talk to you, uh, US, China, wherever the best experts are. So that is completely available to you 24/7 these days, so which is very, very interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Tilve?
Well, see, we have dealt with pandemics before. It is just that we have not been around, none of us were around when the pandemic happened in 1920.
Yeah.
That's a fact. The second is we have seen HIV pandemic in our age group, and as a industry, as an healthcare industry, it meant a lot of modifications, but we learned to do it. Same thing with XDR TB, same thing with malaria. And if you look at those places where it's endemic or it's still in vogue, you will see people adopting to it. So the thing you have to realize is wearing masks is not a big lifestyle change. People in Delhi do it every 3 months in winter. Social isolation in Mumbai is common when rains drain out and do not allow you to go anywhere. So just doing it over a sustained period of time for the next 6 to 9 months is going to be crucial. Which behaviors persist, which behaviors need to change, which habits need to change, we'll learn as we go along. But
Yeah.
we have overcome more serious issues than what we are dealing with right now. And I'm sure that we'll persevere. I remember that at the start of the pandemic, we had a discussion, and one of the most senior colleagues we have told us that, listen, it comes down to understanding that the past is the past and the future has not yet happened. So you need to be in the present and you need to persevere. There will always come a time in all our lives when we have to persevere, when we have to persist, and we have to be there for 6 months to 9 months to 1 year. And it's happened before. We can do it and we can persevere. Behavior wise, I don't expect all of these modifications to persist. The anxiety levels will go down and we will return to full functioning, albeit with a mask or with gloves.
Yeah.
But we will come back to full functioning. I'm hopeful about that. And having seen this in the hospitals on a daily routine, I can tell you the scariest part was not seeing people on the road
Yeah.
in the lockdown. But when I went into the hospital and I saw everyone smiling back at me and every department represented, I knew that I was where I wanted to be during this pandemic, even if it meant it
Yeah.
was one of the most high risk areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are social beings, as all of you said,
Yeah.
and we will respond to other people being around us. Just
Yeah.
that we need to take out the next 6 months and figure a way out of it. And I'm sure we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think so. I was actually, while we're 4 minutes up above the time, but and I actually wanted all of you to give a piece of advice, but I think you've all in a way already given your pieces of advice. So I think just to sum it up, it's a testing time which will obviously pass away, whether it happens through a vaccine or whether it happens through the changes which we bring about in ourselves and in the ecosystem around us. Things definitely will turn positive. They are becoming more and more normal. I think in these times it's just that you keep a grasp on your basics, and not worry too much, not be bogged down by a lot of negative things which is happening around you, and talk to positive people, stay with positive people, and keep positivity in your mind, and just be in close connect with your loved ones, and people who matter to you. I think with this, we will conclude the session. I don't think there are any questions which have come after that. So thank you very much, Dr. Tilve. Thank you, Nirupam. Thank you, Deepu. I think this was I really enjoyed this interaction, and thank you everybody for joining. You've been a great part, audience. While I did not have enough questions, I was really hoping for more. But still, thank you so much for joining. I hope you found this useful.
Thank you, Ashit.
Thank you, Ashit.
Thank you, Dr. Kedar. And thanks to the audience and, everybody in your team, Ashit, who worked behind the scenes, to make it happen, right?
Absolutely.
So thanks to everyone.
Yeah. I also want to thank Utkarsh and Ria and a lot of people others who were working behind in the scenes.
Great to have interacted with
Thank you,
guys
Dr.
and
Way, and thank you,
get an
Ashit.
absolutely
Thank you.
new perspective.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll end the session now. Thank you.
Thank you.